G'day and welcome to my garage. That's got the top flange. No, that's got the side flanges done. Yep, just got to remember there's left and rights. Okay, at the moment I'm drilling the motor rail, or just the rails. They're these rails, this rail across here, well there's two of them. At this end is the 4-stage pulley, the pillow block bearings, the ones we buy, or he encourages us to buy. This end here are the DIY pillar block bearings that are the that support the release crank. So my point at the present moment is this hole here. Now that's the pivot hole, and the way that's, I hope that's focusing. The way that's he's presenting it is this hatched area is the aluminium release crank. No, the pillow block. Sorry, no. Try that again. This hatched area here is the aluminium release crank pivots that we made, and this is the angle that I was just talking about. So this 3/8 bolt goes, there's some washers here, goes through the angle, screws into the aluminium release crank. That's a threaded hole, and then a jam nut on this side to lock that bolt in the desired position. So not tight, because this is a pivot. It's left a little bit loose to allow it to pivot. Now, Gingery in this book, I personally think it's a slight mistake. In this book, he mentions here, this is the hole we're talking about. This is the side rail, the side of that rail, I should say. Motor mount swinging brackets go there. This hole at the end here is for the leg, and that the leg pivots to the top rails. So this hole here is the pivot for the release crank. It's got here tap 3/8/16. I believe that should be a clearance hole 3/8, not a tap 3/8. Why would you put threads in the angle? Because the angle is the part that's going to pivot. So I'm going to drill this out to a clearance hole. In my case, in Australia, we're metric, so that'll be 10 mil. So let's go and do that. Okay, I've just been discussing with you the motor. Where are we? We're in picture. The motor and bearing support rails, and at this hole here, he's mentioned tap 3/8, tap for 3/8. Well, we're going to take in my case it's 10 mil, so I'm going to drill these holes out to 10 mil. So let's just find them. Here we go. 10 mil. 10 mil. Just share for these holes a little bit. Careful you don't take out too much. I haven't done much riveting over the years. In my earlier days I was working at an outstation depot as a motor mechanic, and I used to did a lot of work on trucks, and I used to order the brake shoes for the trucks, the pads only, the linings, because I could reliably get the right linings with the correct hole spacings, and I could actually reliably get the right brake shoe. Quite often the brake shoe was wrong. So I said to my ordering people, don't send me a brake shoe, because it was too difficult. I was, 80 kilometres away from the main workshop. So it was easier just to send me the brake lining, which I then riveted onto the shoes. So a lot of riveting there. I did have a riveting punch tool, and I did quite a few freehand also. But they were brass rivets that were very easy to work. This is steel rivets, and what I'm using is nails, so they're hard, well, relatively hard compared to. My father used to come home with proper cold rivets in his pockets. He was a welder and worked on building new GM locomotives at Clyde Engineering in Australia. So he would come home with a lot of quarter 20 bolts, inch long, and quite often cold rivets. And they were softer than nails, I can remember that. So I've done a little bit of riveting, but not much. But we'll go through the exercise of riveting, what I've found on the internet, and what my experiences are. Because no one does cold riveting. There's no reason for cold riveting anymore. Well, there is. I'm using it because, one, I want to stay in as close to Gingery's book, and two, this is a solid steel rivet once it's installed. I think it would be a lot stronger than using a pop rivet, which would work, a 3/16 pop rivet. I have used it before as a pivot point, but I find the pop rivet loses its tension over time. I don't think they're a good choice for a pivoting member, and these will be pivoting. So that's why I've gone for the steel nail. I couldn't find rivets, cold rivets. Obviously they're out there because I use them still in industry, like aircraft industry. Well, I think they still use it in the aircraft industry. But getting small quantities for home use for a lot of things is very difficult. Here in Australia anyhow. We don't have a very good hobbyist supply chain. But anyhow, I'll come back when we're riveting. Catch you then. Well, I've made a mistake. I think this is the second, maybe third mistake. No, I think it's the second. Anyhow, I've made a mistake. If you recall, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before, I had problems with the length past that there to the end. When I did the, you can't see that, where is it? No, that's not it. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. When I did the, what have we got? Tap 3/16, 3/8, 16. That's the pivot point on the crank, and it was a 1/2 inch in and a 1/2 inch down. Well, I didn't get this right. I got confused with Gingery's way of working things. These 3 points here are not, this is the centre of the boring of a large hole. Then these two are the position to mount it on a face plate, mount this crank on a face plate to bore that hole. But when you go to use this thing, we'll just bring back, where are we? Here. The boring hole is bored out, as you can see. It says here, there's a hole there. That's one of the holes we drilled. There was 3 marked. 1, 2, and the third one here was not used. That's the 3 marks on this crank release. There's another one further up. Now, when I made this, I used the 3 holes. Well, the 3 marks. Centre to bore. This one here to hold the handle. There is another one on the leg that's not shown here to hold the handle. Now, I've used this one here, which you recall is not used. I used that as the 3/8/16 tapped hole. That's wrong. I'm wrong. That's not it. That there is just not, as he says, not used. It's just a hole to help in the machining of mounting this to a faceplate to machine the centre. So now I've got a problem. I've got this one here which is not used. I've got that as the pivot point, 3/8/16, or in my case 10mm. So let's bring you out a bit. I think I can recover from this. I think mainly my point here is to inform you or to warn you to be careful of the mistake that I made. And to remember that these 3 points have got nothing to do with mounting. Only one is for mounting, the other one's a dummy, and this one here is for drilling the centre. So let's have a look what I've got. In my earlier video I mentioned that I did have problems. I put this half inch radius in, and if you see my black spot there, can you see my black spot? I think so. Probably can't. Let's zoom you in. Just behind the bolt. That point there is what I used to do the half inch radius. To start with. Came in half inch from the end, half inch down, did the radius, but something was wrong. I already had this hole drilled out to 10mm, 3/8/16. So something was wrong. Only the top part would go to half inch crank. The bottom was a lot longer. It was it was 3/8 of an inch longer, and that was so it would clear. I cut it off so I could clear the rail. So at the present moment, although it's wrong, I do go over centre. Where's my bar? So if I put the bar here in centre, Put it roughly in centre there. Put it in centre. In centre. No, that's not working. Centre, centre. You can see that the pivot point is below the centre line of the bush for this crank, and the centre line, is that coming in? No. And the centre line of the pillow block back here. So between the two pillow blocks, this one's a pillow block that this is mounted to. That's a pillow block for the other 4-stage pulley. The centre line is above the centre point, and I've got a screw here. That's in the position he was talking about. So I can achieve that. Now, to the problem I have. The handle is supposed to be mounted in those two bolt holes. Guess what? It won't work. So I'm going to cut out I'll make it look nice. I'm going to cut this angle so that it clears the handle, and that should work. The only thing that's wrong now is the distance between this 4-stage pulley and that 4-stage pulley. It's come 3/8 of an inch further forward. But having said that, I'm not using the size 4-stage pulleys that Gingery use, 5, 4, 3 and 2-inch pulleys. Mine came out of a wood lathe, and the largest is, how big is the largest? Not too sure now. I think, what was it? 60 mil, I think. I think the largest is 60 mil, rather than 5 inch was 120. But I still get my gear ratios. So this pulley over the back was going to be moved forward anyhow. That's why I didn't drill it. This is the original positions. I didn't drill it because I'm going to move this to suit the two 4-stage pulleys and the belt that I got off the wood lathe. So this problem here is not going to affect the operation. I was just a bit annoyed I didn't read the instructions in the book properly, fully, or I didn't actually fully understand where he was going with it. But anyhow, I can work around it. There we go. Don't make that mistake. Well, that's where my electric motor came out of. That's the wood lathe housing. So, over to the electric motor. Interesting. The only support bracket for this electric motor is this plate on the end. It carried the electric motor on those two big screws. That was it. There's no other. There's no other form of holding it on, except for those two big screws. So, Well, that should have it loose. Yep. So this is the motor housing, motor and pulley housing for the wood lathe. The motor sits in here, shaft out here. So I'm going to use this as the motor bracket rather than just make up a something else. I might as well use this. So yep, see that. What I plan to do is trim that off and then weld the seams up. Put larger tacks on because these are only very small tacks. Put a brace across here. Probably use probably use this and just cut that off so that it meets the profile of this piece I've cut out. But even to do that, I've got to unpick the welds for this cross shaft bearing holders. And that comes off, and then I can use this material. That end's got to come off also. That end, and the shaft, that all goes. And I should be able to use that in there. That'll give me a solid box that the motor's mounted into. And I've got a problem with that. I've got the old switch hole here. Got to make sure this doesn't interfere with the mounting it to the motor rail. I won't need to do the adjustment mechanism on the motor rail because this has got an adjustment in the slots there for the two motor mounting bolts. So I'll use this system rather than Gingery's one. And then mount this mount this to the directly to the rails at a good distance. No, it should be all right. Anyhow, so that's how it's going. Must be a good 60–70% humidity today. Shocking. Okay, I've got this plate